right. Okay, so welcome to the webinar. And this webinar is for you if you're a nonprofit that needs funding to sustain or develop your programs. You're tired of using your own money. You're interested in applying for grants, but you have no idea where to start, or you've applied for grants and you haven't received any awards. So I personally, with our nonprofit, have been all four of these areas. So I'm going to share how we kind of got out of the rut and was able to start to win grant awards. So what you'll learn tonight is that, first of all, you need to determine if your organization is even ready to apply for grants. I believe this was like our biggest mistake. We were applying for grants for 2 years and we weren't getting any grant awards. And I think the main reason was that we really were not ready to, we really were not ready. Um, I'm sorry, Aaron, there's like several people in the waiting room. Can you let them in? But if you could watch that for me, that would be great. Sorry, you guys. Welcome, welcome to everyone who just joined. I didn't see that you guys were in the waiting room, but we're just getting started, and I'm really trying to be conscious of your time. So I do have a couple of slides available, but if you have questions along the way, if you want to drop them in the chat, um, and then I'll also leave time at the end to answer any questions that you may have. So this is just the second slide that we're on. So let me go back. Okay, so what you guys will learn today is that we'll determine if you're grant ready. As I was mentioning before, most of you came into the room, is that that was our biggest mistake. We were applying for grants for 2 years and we weren't getting any grant awards. And the reason was because we really were not ready to apply for grants and we didn't know. And it was just a lot of time, energy, and frustration that we experienced. So, we'll determine that. We'll take about 5 minutes to see if you're grant ready. The types of grants available to nonprofits. We'll talk a little bit about some ways you can find grants for free and not have to subscribe to any paid databases, as well as, I'm trying to get rid of this right here, as well as essential documents that you'll need to begin applying for grants. And then I'll talk a little bit about 2 or 3 steps that you can take immediately after this webinar that can get you started on your grant funding strategy. So I wanted to share a little bit about me before we get started. So I'm married to my college sweetheart. So we dated in college. However, it wasn't a fairy tale romance. We did not get married until 26 years later. So I'm on my second marriage. We do have a blended family. We have 2 boys and 4 girls, ages 31 to 10 years old. And I live for adventure. I'm naturally not an adventurous person, but my husband is so spontaneous. He kind of like pulls me with him, and I've learned to embrace adventure. So I love adventure. I love being spontaneous. And then my why. I'm the founder of GWA Associates, and we're a virtual assistant agency. And the reason why I founded the business is to support my daughter's goals and dreams of attending a 4-year university out of state. So those of you who have kids in college know that that's very expensive. So I definitely needed to find a way that I could support her dream. So that's why I founded my business. Okay. So my story. So I have 15 plus years of proposal and grant management experience in both commercial and government sectors. I currently work as an administrator in a nonprofit founded by my husband in 2014. And the reason why I wanted to do this webinar is because I do get a lot of questions from friends, friends of friends that are either thinking about starting a nonprofit or they've started a nonprofit and they're struggling, and they just are just trying to find a path forward to help them grow their nonprofit and help it be successful, without having to uh, use any of their funds, their own personal funds. So we've been there, we've done that, and I feel that I bring a unique aspect to grant writing training because since I personally understand the challenges of nonprofits more than I care to admit, I definitely bring a different perspective when approaching grants. So, as I mentioned earlier, the key to applying for grants is making sure that your nonprofit is ready to apply for grants. So, what I want you guys to do is, get a pen, paper, get your OneNote, and I'm going to ask you a series of 10 questions. It'll take about 5 minutes, and I need you guys to jot down yes or no, okay? And at the end of the quiz, we'll talk a little bit about what your answers mean. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first question is, your organization has obtained a 501c3 status from the IRS. This is key to getting grant awards. Your organization has obtained an employer identification number. This is different than the 501c3. It's a free EIN number that you can get through the IRS. So most funders, they don't really ask for it up front, but once they do the grant award, they want your EIN number for tax purposes. So you need to make sure you have that. Your organization has established a credible board of directors, a minimum of 5 members in the community, not including relatives. Now, this is a lesson learned for us. So when I talk about it now, I laugh, but when we first started our nonprofit, we had 4 board members. And looking back, we're like, why do we have 4 board members? Because any voting that you do, we didn't have a tiebreaker. And then on top of that, my husband had himself, his 2 sisters, and his best friend. That wasn't good either. So a lot of grant applications, they want to know who's on your board. They ask for their name, they ask for their phone number, they ask for their address, and they ask for their occupation. So I do believe that was probably one of the downsides why we weren't getting any grant awards. It was very obvious that my husband and his sisters were relatives. So what we had to do was we've diversified our board. So we've gotten community members involved. We have a finance person, an attorney, a marketing person. So we definitely had to get a variety of team members for our board. And I believe that really, really helped us start securing some grant awards. Okay, you've identified a community need that you can support. So you need to be able to clearly define how you positively impact the community. You need to be able to do that in writing. You have a compelling mission statement that clearly defines your organization and what it accomplishes. 9 out of 10 grant applications are going to specifically ask, what is your mission statement? So you should have one if you don't. That's very, very important. Do you have relevant programs with a good reputation for service delivery? So, have you been able to put on programs in your community that you can reference? So, what we do to answer this question in grant applications, we do press releases. We always ask the media to come out, or we send the media press releases so they can either do a write up on it on their blog or the newspaper. So we usually have some sort of evidence that we completed a program and what the impact was. Have pictures, that's probably the easiest way, having pictures. So you need to make sure that you have a good reputation for service delivery. Does your organization have an annual and or program budget? Most, if not all, grant applications are going to ask you to provide a program budget, and it needs to be very, very specific. Again, this is one of our mistakes that we made. Every once in a while, a grant application will ask for an annual operation budget as well. So those are 2 things that I highly suggest that you just have ready to go when you're applying for grants. Do you have multiple revenue streams? funders don't want to think that they're the only source of funding for your organization. So you need to be able to show that you have other revenue streams that are supporting your organization. And the way that they'll verify that is by requesting either a PF 990 that you can complete yourself, or have a CPA complete it, or you could provide audited financial statements. Does your nonprofit plan and evaluate its impact on a regular basis? This also is a key portion of a grant application. So you need to clearly define how you evaluate your impact on a regular basis. So for us in our youth programs, we have like a life skills workshop. So what we do, we provide a survey at the beginning of the workshop and the end of the workshop. So we can kind of see what the kids learned, throughout the workshop, and then we can compile that in a response, and then we just include that in our grant application. Last but not least is that you understand that raising significant amounts of money requires significant amounts of effort, time, and creativity. Okay, so Erin, if you could go ahead and drop the key in the chat for everyone. And what I need everyone to do is count up your yeses. And if you want to drop that in the chat as well, say, yay, I have 10 yeses, or 6 yeses, or 5 or less yeses means you're not grant ready. Let's see where we all stand. So I'll give you guys a moment to count up your yeses and read the answer key and get an idea of where you guys are at. All right. So Javier, I see you have a 7. Okay, Belinda, 3. Okay, we'll get you there. 6. Awesome, Renee. Okay, so you guys have a good start. Even I think it was Belinda. Belinda who has a 3. Okay, we can help you. All right. So hopefully you can get some information tonight and we can get you to a 6 or an 8 really, really fast. So if you have 9 or more yeses, you're ready. Okay. So what you learned tonight, you can go ahead and run full speed ahead with what you need to do. And then those of you that move my thing forward. Okay, and then those of you that have 6 or less, I would say let's hold off. Let's see where you are, and take some time to get your nonprofit established before you waste your time, energy, and effort to start submitting grant applications. So before we get started, I wanted to talk to you guys about Max. So Max actually has a for-profit business. She runs a bartending school, and she came to me because she had a specific grant opportunity. However, she didn't know where to start. So what we did for her is that we analyzed where she is. We got her set up with essential documents. We basically built her grant application library. So when grants do come, and we walked her through the steps. So when another grant does come along, she knows what to do. So this is a quote that she gave us for the experience that she had with us. Okay, so what grants are available and where can I find them? This is the most popular question that I get. But before we get into that, I just want to make sure that we're all level set when we talk about grants. So a grant is a cash award that is provided to either an individual or an organization from a funder. We call them a funder, but a funder is a corporation, a foundation, government. But in the grant world, we say funder. And it's usually to help. They give you this money to help you accomplish a specific program or task. And the best thing about grants is that you don't have to pay them back. So that is what the best thing about grants is, that you don't have to pay them back like a loan. So what grants are not? I don't want to give you guys a false sense of what grants are. So, grants are definitely not an answer to all your funding issues. They're not a quick fix, as we'll talk about over the next few slides. You'll see that applying and obtaining grants is definitely a process, and it can be a lengthy process. And it's not quote unquote easy money. Once you get a grant funding strategy in place, the process gets easier, but it's definitely not simple. You're not going to be able to apply for a grant tomorrow and get it awarded right away. So we'll talk a little bit through that this evening. So I'm going to speak primarily to free resources to find grants, but as some of you may be aware, there are paid databases that can be used. We personally, with our nonprofit, have not used paid databases, so I can't tell you how effective they are. But what I'm going to speak to you tonight, we have personally experienced success. So the first thing I want to talk about are corporate foundations and giving programs. So this is where we've seen our biggest success. And what I mean by corporate foundations are the big corporations that we all know, like Walmart, Target, Publix, Dick's Sporting Goods. And I'm going to speak on our personal experience. So we offer youth sports programs. So one of our biggest corporate funders is Dick's Sporting Goods. So we've received our first grant award with Dick's in 2016. And ever since then, every year we apply for the grant and every year we get the grant because we align with them. We align with them directly. So we offer sports programs. They provide sports equipment. So another way is Walmart. Walmart is very engaged in the community, and we've been awarded 2 Walmart grants. And the key to getting a Walmart grant is that you need to build that relationship. So, what my husband did specifically was that he went into the Walmart store, asked to speak to the manager, introduced himself to the manager. The manager wanted some information about our organization, and like maybe a couple weeks later, he was like, "Oh, I have $1,000. Just send me." He sent us the application to apply. He's like, "Put my name on it." And, I don't know, like a month or 6 weeks later, we got the check in the mail. So that's with Walmart. Publix has funding. So most corporations out there have money and they want to support local organizations. So it's just getting on their website. First of all, I'm going to take a step back. First of all, you need to find out what corporation you align yourself with. So if you are, let's say you have a pet shelter, then I would go after corporations that cater to pets, like a PetSmart or Chewy.com. And then what I would do next is go to their website, see what type of foundation that they have. 9 times out of 10, they're going to have that information on their website. But if not, then what I would do is find a their community development contact, and send them an email. Introduce yourself, give them your website, attach a flyer or an information sheet that they can review. And we've always had good experience doing that, not just for me, but I tell my clients as well. So, I'll give them an email, what to write, an email template, what to send, and they'll get a response. So that is what I would say is low-hanging fruit for all of you that have newer nonprofits and you're just trying to get your grant funding strategy started. The second is community foundations. So I'm not going to say every state, but most states have a community foundation. And if you're in a highly populated area, like say Atlanta has several community foundations. They have like North Atlanta Foundation, South Atlanta Community Foundation. Or if you're where our nonprofit is based in Alabama, which is less populated, they have regional foundations. So we've have a relationship with the South Alabama Community Foundation, and then there's the Central Alabama Community Foundation. So, how you can find out what community foundation would support your organization is just do a Google search, community foundations near me. And if for those of you that aren't familiar with a community foundation, that's their sole purpose is to fund nonprofits that serve their community. They work with philanthropists and other small organizations that want to fund community initiatives, but they just don't know where to go or they don't want to handle the process. So they'll reach out to the community foundations and donate the money to them. And then it's the community foundation's mission to seek out different initiatives that they can support. So they always have information on their website. The only drawback with community foundations is that they are very specific with the initiatives that they will sponsor. And it can change from year to year. So one year they may be focused on youth programs. The next year they'll focus on veterans. The year after that, they'll focus on senior citizens. So it just varies. So what you can do after this call or during this call is that you can just do a Google search of community foundations, visit their website, again, send them an email, just try and build a relationship with them. And since they are very focused on knowing what's going on in their community, they're very open to meeting with you in person. They'll say, oh, you can come to our office or we have office hours on a certain date and take advantage of it. The more people that you meet and you connect with, raises your chances of getting a grant award. Next on the list is federal government grants. So our nonprofit personally has not applied for government grants because it tends to be a much higher level of qualifications, and our nonprofit is smaller and we're more regional, so it's harder for us to even get our foot in the door with federal grants. That is my personal experience. But if you're a larger organization and you have a very broad footprint, federal government grants is a way to go, and you could go to grants.gov, and they usually list federal grants, and you could get notifications. You could put in like what type of grant you're looking for, and then you can get email notifications sent directly to you when those grants become available. Next is small business organizations. So like SCORE or the SBA, Small Business Administration in your state or your county. There's SCORE, which is usually in your state or your county or your city. There's also Alice.com, and that focuses on small businesses and nonprofit organizations. I highly suggest that you register with them. They also have grants available across a variety of initiatives. So that's where I find a lot of grants, not only for myself, but for the clients that I support. And then there's city and county grants. This is probably low hanging fruit as well. So we found luck with our county chamber of commerce. So if you're not engaged with your chamber of commerce, I highly suggest that you become engaged. You find out a lot of information working or being connected to the chamber of commerce. And it's an easy way to network. It's an easy way to find out about funding opportunities for free. And then there's family foundation grants. This is a little bit harder to find only because they are private. They tend not to have websites, but we have built a relationship with a family foundation. And a family foundation is like an Arthur Blank Foundation or I'm trying to think of another big family. I can't think offhand, or the Firestone Foundation. So they tend to be a little bit harder to get into and a little bit harder to get to know if they have funding available. But the way that we've been able to connect with family foundations is through our affiliation with the Chamber of Commerce, our affiliations with our Alumni Association, My husband and I graduated from the same college, so we're very active in our college's alumni association. And you get to network and find out, once they know what you do, that you operate a nonprofit, they'll tell you, oh, my family has a foundation and we're looking to support someone. So that's a good way. And you know what? We've made a connection with an amazing family in South Alabama, and every year they give us money. So we just need to provide them with what we're planning to use the money for, and they send a check. And it's just been a really great relationship. So if you can get an in with a family foundation and build and sustain that relationship, that's an awesome way for you to get funding for your nonprofit. Okay, so next I'm going to speak to essential documents. So these documents are areas that are asked in, oh, I'm going to say 95% of grant applications. So you're going to need to talk about your organization. You're going to talk about how your organization solves a problem or meets a need in your community. So as we talked about in the quiz, you need to have a mission statement. You need to clearly be able to clearly communicate in writing, because most of these grants are in writing, your vision for your organization. You need to have a written history, when you were founded, why you were founded, know who your community partners are. This goes a long way. Again, I think was a big miss for us when we first started applying for grants. We didn't really work with anybody else. So we really had to network and work with other nonprofits in the community, things. So we have a really good relationship now with the Boys and Girls Club. So we don't have a physical facility. So we've been able to network with the Boys and Girls Club, introduce our nonprofit to them, and they've allowed us to use their facilities for different programs that we put on. And in turn, we also, so since we host the program and we provide funding for the program, we allow them to be able to expand their program offering, because of course we open it up for the boys and girls members to attend those events for free as well. So you need to look and see where you can connect with partners in your community, and that really does add weight to your grant application. And then in regards, I'm not going to go over every bullet just because of the sake of time, but I'm just going to speak to um, maybe high points that you need to be conscious of when you start applying for grants. So for statement of need and problem statement, you need to clearly be able to define how your organization solves a problem. So for example, our nonprofit, our mission is helping today's youth see a better tomorrow. And we focus on kids from disadvantaged communities, specifically where my husband grew up, in the community that he grew up in, which is, I think it's like 80% live below poverty. So we provide programs, we provide them access to sports, access to field trips for free, opportunities that they otherwise may not be able to do. So in doing this and providing these kids with this opportunity, we're able to collect true stories and really be able to speak to how our organization impacted a specific person's life. So the more that you can show that your organization has made a positive impact on the community you serve, the stronger your application will be. And that's just one point. There's several different ways to go about it, but that's just one point and an easy point. I mean, you guys work very closely in your organization, and I'm sure you hear it all the time, how, people come back and say, you know what, I really appreciated what you did to me. After attending your program, it really impacted my life. So you guys just need to start documenting that, and taking pictures documenting it, asking people who participate in your program for a quote that you can use, and that really goes a long way in your grant application. For project objectives, so you need to be very, very clear on what your project is accomplishing. You can't just say, if you have a homeless organization, you can't just say, oh, we're going to reduce homelessness. Well, how are you going to reduce homelessness? I didn't mean to do that. How are you going to reduce homelessness? And what I use is SMART goals. So this is what I use in my corporate proposal management job. So be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. So if you can provide a description, a project description that hits all of those keys, then that's great. That's golden. You're 100%. You should get 100% of the points for that section, just using that outline. And a project description. So here, I feel was a big fail for us in the beginning as well. So you need to give details about how you're going to um, complete your program. Everywhere, everything from uh, how many volunteers you need, what supplies you need. I mean, the more specific you can get in this section, and the more you can help the evaluator visualize and envision what your project is about, the better off your application will be. So even the minute details, the more minute you can be, the better off your application will be. And then your budget. You need to be very, very clear on your budget. So there's two things here that I want to point out. So if you have a funder, they say they have a $10,000 grant available. You don't want to submit a budget that's $25,000 because they're going to say, you know what, with our $10,000, you're not going to be able to host this event or pull off this project. So they're going to X you from the list. So you need to make sure that your budget is in alignment with what the funding is. Okay. So if it is a $10,000 budget, get as close to the $10,000 that you can. I know sometimes a project may cost $5,000. So if that's, I mean, $15,000. So you'll use $10,000 of the grant money. Then you need to show where the other 5,000 is coming from. So I know we've done that in the past and we've been awarded the grant by showing that. So we'll say 10,000 is grant money, $2,500 will be donations, and the other $2,500 is coming from another grant, something like that. But you just need to be very clear with your budget and make sure it makes sense. So the budget is key to making sure you get a grant award. So this is another testimonial from one of the other organizations that we help. So David is a former professional athlete, and he has a nonprofit organization, and he didn't have any idea about grant awards. So my husband had clued him in on that game. So we've been able to help him as well with his initiatives by showing him how to apply for grants. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the blueprint that we follow, that we found success with. And as I mentioned earlier, it took us 2 years to get a grant award. And I've kind of shared our lessons learned along the way. I think it was a combination of things that prevented us from winning grants. And actually, we actually had to hire a grant writer because it was so frustrating applying for all these grants because for those of you that have started the grant writing process, you know that it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, and it's just so defeating applying for these grants and not getting any awards. So finally, I was able to convince my husband. We paid $2,000 for this grant writer. But you know what? It's paid itself over. It was definitely worth the money because even though she was writing the grant for us, I was able to shadow her and see what she was doing And then I was able to adjust it based on our organization. And then along the way, I've been tweaking the process and seeing what works for me, what works for other organizations, because it's not a one size fit all. But so what I'm going to give you is like a blueprint that you could work with. And then as you start getting grant awards, you'll start seeing like, oh, you know what, we did this time and we got the grant award. And it was actually easier than what I did the last application. So you'll start figuring out what steps work best for you, and what's most efficient and effective for you. So we use the REAP method. So I've came up with these steps. It's R stands for record your organization's needs. This is something we didn't do either when we first started our grant process. E is evaluate your qualifications. A is to attain the grant opportunities, find the right opportunities for you. And then P is prepare and submit your grant application on time. That is key. So, in terms of recording your organization's needs, so, the saying that you need to know where you're going in order to get there, right? So, you need to have a very clear picture of what your organization's goals are. You can't just say, oh, I want my organization to grow, or, you know, I want to hire people. You need to be very, very specific. And again, this is something that we did not do, that we do now. So, for example, our need for this year, for 2021, it was our goal to start a youth entrepreneurship program. So that means that kind of narrows down the type of grants and funding that we're going after, because we have a very specific plan of what we need the money for. So it's very important for you to have 1 to 3 items on your list of what you want to do this year. Or, we're almost the end of 2021. So have a clear list or vision for your organization for 2022. So just write it down. Because what this does, it provides keywords that will help you streamline your grant search and help you determine what grants you're going to go after moving forward. Okay, so step number 2, you need to evaluate your qualifications and confirm you meet the requirements. So I'm going to tell you guys another story, and I'm laughing because when I think back of what we did, I'm just like, that was just ridiculous. So my husband came home from some meeting, and he was like, "Oh, Home Depot is offering $25,000 to nonprofits." I'm like, "Oh, that's great." He was like, "We need to apply for it." So I'm like, "Okay." So I go on the website and I see that Home Depot is offering a $25,000 grant, but it's for veterans. And we have a youth program. He was like, "Oh, he had a connection with this veteran group. So he was like, "Oh, we can put together a grant where we can help this veteran group beautify their housing," because it was a veteran housing organization. That's not what we do, but okay, I'm gonna support my man and go do this grant. And so we met with the veterans organization. I pulled the budget, for what we're gonna do, and spent a lot of time on it. And I know you guys know we did not get it, because if you look at our website, you look at our social media, we have nothing to do with veterans. We were trying to fit our organization into this grant, and that is never a good thing. So, looking back, I see that was a huge mistake. So, unless that's why I say it is so important to have a clear idea of what you're trying to do, because not every grant will be for you, and that's okay. You need to make sure that you only go after grants that align with your mission and that helps you accomplish your goals. And out of the 10 grants that you find, you may only be able to apply to one. But again, that one is perfect for you and you will get that grant. So that's what you have to look at. Okay, number 3 is attain grant opportunities. We talked about that a few slides back. So I gave you some good ways to find grant opportunities. In addition, if you guys follow me, I'm on Instagram. I post grant opportunities every Friday that I find, and it's across a variety of different areas. So I'll give you my social media account at the end, but you can just, and then you can apply for, go to alice.com and your SBA. Just try and seek out different organizations that provide grant announcements so you can stay up to date with grants. And then you can also do your own personal search, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, so then now that you have your grant, so you've completed steps 1 through 3, so now it's time for you to create your proposal. And you need to make sure that RFPs are very clear and specific. So if they're asking you to provide 10 items, you need to provide all 10 items because if you don't, you're going to get disqualified. So you need to be very clear on what and have a good understanding of what the proposal is asking you for. You need to make sure you provide detailed responses for each requirement. Don't just talk like, just don't just talk to be talking. Remember, less is more, but you need to be very specific and very clear because an evaluator is looking at multiple number of applications and you want to make sure that yours is the clearest and they don't have any questions after they review it. And then also, I want to let you guys know if there's a requirement that you don't understand, it's okay to email them and say, can you please provide further clarification? I'm not understanding what you're expecting here. Or for this happened to us a lot is that some of the grants that we applied for wanted audited financial statements. Our nonprofit personally does not have audited financial statements. So I would email the the proposal contact and I would say, we don't have audited financial statements. Would you accept a PF 990 or our tax return? Like I'll give them an option. And every time they've said yes, yes, we'll accept that. Just, let me know when you submit it that I said that was okay. So, if there's a requirement that you can sort of meet, but not quite, if you reach out to the funder, they will work with you. So, that's an option for you. Um, Also, request another person to proofread your final grant application because a lot of times you're working on this grant for 2 or 3 weeks at a time and you're overlooking simple mistakes. It happens to me, it happens to the best of us. So it's very good to get a fresh set of eyes before you submit your grant application. And last but not least, you need to submit it on time. Right now, a lot of funders are using portals so you can submit them online. And then if they say the proposal's due at 4 p.m., at 4 p.m. or 4:01, that portal is going to be locked down and you're not going to be able to submit it. So it's very important to make sure that you plan accordingly so you get your proposal complete before the due date. So I always try and have my proposals submitted at least 24 hours before the due date. So that will prevent any last minute issues or any computer issues that you might have if you need to upload your document to their portal. Okay, so I could not end this discussion without highlighting my husband. So, this is my husband, Sherman, and he is the founder of the Palmer Williams Group. And I told him to give me a quote. And he said that having grants for the organization has really made a difference in our organization because it's allowed us to expand. So his specific quote was grants are 20% of our income and have allowed us to expand the programs we offer to the youth in our community. So even though it started out with just offering sports programs, we've been able to expand to offering 1 day athletic clinics across multiple sports. We first started off with just football. And then we also offer life skills workshops. And now we just got awarded a grant where we are implementing a youth entrepreneurship club and we're partnering with a local high school. So grants have allowed us to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to give you three clear steps. So if you determine that you are grant ready, these are steps that you can follow right away. If you determine that you're not grant ready, you can focus on step number one, and then you can work to getting yourself grant ready. And that's one of the things I'm going to give you as well at the end of this presentation. And I'll send you the link as well, as I'm going to give you that grant ready checklist so you can, print it out and keep it in front of you and make sure you can cross every item off that checklist. Work towards doing that every day. So step one is make your wish list. So if you don't have one, that's the first thing that you need to do before you start your grant funding strategy. Step two, you need to commit to searching for grants a minimum of once a week. So I do once a week. So I say Thursday evenings, I'm going to search for grants. And then what happens when I'm searching is that I may come across grants where the due date has passed, but I'll still log that information and I'll make myself a note in my Google Calendar, maybe 2 months before that grant due date. So, for example, I found a grant in August that was due in August. And I was like, oh my gosh, this would have been perfect for us. So I'll put a note in my calendar to start looking for ABC grant in July. So next year in 2022, I'll start looking for it and make sure that we apply for it. So it's always good to just log grants that you think are a great fit for you, even if the due date has passed. And that is your free gift. So your free gift is the grant log and search checklist, where I kind of give you some guidance of how to do your free searches for grants, and then a log that you can actually log your grants in. And it is writable. So you'll be able to keep an electronic copy on your computer, and you need to commit. I mean, and if you're a new nonprofit and you can't do once a week, try and do every other week or at least once a month. You're going to just have to show some consistency in order to start your funding strategy. And last but not least is step three. So within the next 2 weeks, I'm all for, you learn by doing. So if you haven't dipped your feet in the grant application pool, now's the time to do it. You're on this webinar, you're getting the resources, you're getting some good tips and tricks that you can follow in order to start your grant funding. So give yourself a time. I said within the next 2 weeks or within the next month or before the end of the year. Start a grant application process with what you've learned today, and using the grants that you find in your log. So that's what I suggest that you guys do. It's don't procrastinate. Just head, put 2 feet first, full speed ahead. So, I'd love to have the opportunity to help you. So if you're at a place where you're not sure what to do next, or you've been where we've been, you've applied for grants, but you haven't had any luck, I do have a couple of programs that I want to talk to you guys about real quickly. So the first one is the Reap and Sow package. So this is for grant ready nonprofits. So you've determined that you are grant ready. You meet most of the items on that checklist. You just don't know what to do. You haven't started your grant application library. You don't have a funding strategy. You just need some direction, and you need someone to kind of work with you, hold your hand to get your grant library in place. So this is a small program. It's a one-on-one group coaching, small group coaching, I'll say that. It's limited to 4 people. I can effectively work with 4 people at a time, and it's across 6 weeks. So this is something that you may want to think about if you're at this place. The next one is Ready to Win package. So this is a 4-week program. This is one-on-one, and this is for those of you that are not grant ready. You're struggling to get grant ready because you know that you can apply for some of these grants, and you need to apply for some of these grants in order to start growing and expanding your nonprofit. So this is a 4-week program, one-on-one. It's open to 2 people. I can work with 2 people effectively. And what we'll do is look at that checklist, see where what you're missing, and I will help you obtain those items so you can have all 10 items on that list. We'll talk about what we need to do to get you up to speed, to get your grant funding library together, to get all your essential documents together. I will work with you to find one grant, and we will work together on a grant application and get a grant submitted. Okay, so that's also a way that we can work together if you feel that you're at that point. I do have a bonus that I'm offering to everyone if you do decide to go with the Reap and Sow package. And this program, I would like to start it in the next 2 weeks, like by the end of this month, though. So I'm looking at November 29th, which is a Monday that week, and get started. So you can go full steam ahead when 2022 comes along. So if you do decide to move forward with the Reap and Sow package, I'm offering 3 bonuses. And the first one is a proofreading and editing bonus. And what this does is, although I offer proofreading and editing services within the program, after you complete the program, I will make myself available to you within 6 months to proofread and edit another grant that you will apply for. Because in the program, I'll walk you through an actual grant application and we'll apply for one grant together. And then within 6 months, when you decide you want to apply for another grant, I can work with you there as well. Bonus number 2 is a private coaching session. This is a 60-minute session that I'll make myself available to you after the 6-week program ends. And then the third bonus is a grant writing starter kit. So it's a workbook and it includes templates. That's like the hardest thing, templates. Finding templates that work. Like I talked to you guys about earlier, like I have email templates that I use to reach out to sponsors, that I reach out to potential partners. I will provide you with a template of an actual grant application that you can refer to after the program is over. So that is a grant writing starting kit that has a value of $49.99. That is very helpful for you to have in your library. So just a summary of everything. So regularly priced, it would be $1,497.99. But with you joining the webinar today, and I'm offering this special price from today through November 28th, which is the Sunday before the program starts. It's a special price of $499 or 2 payments of $265. And like I said, I'm limiting it to 4 people because I can't manage more than 4 people effectively. I want to make sure that you guys get the support that you need to have a successful funding strategy so you can be confident and move forward with applying for grants on your own. And this is way less than the $2,000 that we had to invest about 4 years ago. This was in 2016. So, I really would love the opportunity to work with you guys. Erin, if you could go ahead and drop the link to the programs so they can visit the site and kind of read a little bit more about the programs. And like I said, the programs will be open for enrollment or registration from today through November 28th. And Erin will drop the link in there. As I said earlier, I do offer grant opportunities on my Instagram account. So you can go ahead and visit my Instagram account at GWA_VA. And every Friday, it is my mission to provide opportunities for you guys. And one of my friends, she was like, why do you do that for free? Like, why do you give people all this information? Because I tell you what website to go to, when it's due, who would be best fit for this grant. And I said, you know what? Someone helped us along the way, and I want to help others. So if I could provide additional information that will help you grow and help you achieve your mission, that's something that I do. And I search for grants weekly anyway. So we can't apply for all the grants. So I tend to communicate different grant opportunities to people that I know that it may be a better fit for. So I look forward to helping you guys with that information as well.